I'm Danny Cannell, and I'm here chopping it up with my guy, Buck, one of the best in the business.
It feels good, man. It feels good, right?
You ready?
I'm in the light at the end of the tunnel. Paper stacks, yeah, I got them in the bundles. Harry Potter breaking bread with the muggles. They said I would have made it. Now they
Okay, we're at the NFL Scouting Combine, chopping it up with Buck, and I'm going to tell you, the minute I asked these young men when they got off the podium, interview or interrogation, you could see it in their eyes. They knew exactly what I was talking about. I was here in 1990, and I can remember it. I still get the heebie-jeebies thinking about getting ready for the mental part. The physical part I could do. I did all that. I was ready for that. But the mental part, man, that was tough. And you could tell these guys have been prepped. They've been prepared. But it's nothing like getting ready to talk to 32 different franchises about your future. We had a chance to catch up with some old linemen and some other folks and hear their story. But I love talking to the old linemen because they always have that insight. They're always the guys that know. They're the cerebral guys. They're the guys that have to work as a cohesive unit. But now they're by themselves. They don't have that to fall back on. And the combine will test your mettle to see if you're ready for it. So we had a great time here. I'm looking forward to seeing how these guys work out because mentally they got through that part. Now physically, that's the next step. I'm Buck, and you're chopping it up with me this week at the Scouting Combine. Here with Paris Johnson Jr. Talk to me about interrogation or interview, because I did this in 90 and I felt like I had to be ready for both.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a little bit of both, but I mean, I feel like, talk about the perspective too, like, I know it's the biggest interview of my life, so I mean, I'm open and honest every question, so it was cool.
Yeah, it's still the same way, man. NFL teams just trying to figure out as much as they can about you, a little bit about your background, how you grew up, things like that. It ain't nothing changed but the year. It's still everything's still the same.
I mean, I've been prepared for my agency, going through mock interviews, getting ready for different types of questions, whether it's about your personal life, whether it's about, film. You got to be ready for anything. And one of the most important things about the interview that some guy sometimes forgets, like, you got to be yourself. You can't get caught in a lie whatsoever. Just be yourself. Everything's going to be all right.
There's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of instances where it was like, it's like they're just trying to like stress you out, But no, it's good because that's the whole purpose of this. See what you can do under stress, and I agree with it.
Especially the mental part of just being at the combine. Obviously there's grilling hours and stuff like that, and then being able to go on the field and being able to execute under all that pressure. I think that's a really good thing. And that's a really good thing to overcome too, especially during this process.
It's been great. I think being able to be able to talk to all these teams and being able to explain myself as a person, but also be able to tell them about my attitude and my demeanor, the way I approach the field, and being able to get up on the board, to be able to draw stuff up, being able to talk about scheme and things I'm seeing in my own game that I know I want to fix, and be able to talk about things that I have that are intangibles that I don't think all the other tackles, in this class have. So being able to just talk about everything has been awesome.
I really approach it just like it's another game, just trying to give it my best and my all, working on the small details, just trying to hone in on those small details. I learned that at Georgia, and that's really helped me a lot. So, just trying to work on those, finish up like the small prints, just being able to lock in on those and like really work on those.
I want to feed them, what I'm saying? I want them to eat just like I am.
All right, I'm here with Danny Cannell, my good friend. We used to go at it on the Experts. Man, I missed that show. We used to sit around and talk ball, and then all the other people started stealing stuff. But Danny Cannell with CBS Sports, Sirius XM. How you doing, man?
Buck, I'm good, man.
Yeah,
It's great to see you.
I
It's
know.
fun to be here at the Combine. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was.
I know.
And we were here, doing interviews ourselves, It's crazy.
That's what I want to get into your mindset to talk about the quarterback position, but also the mental part. I remember in 90 coming to Indy, different town, different setup. How was it for you, but also how do you project that to these quarterbacks this year?
It was probably the most stressful interview you'll ever be a part of, and it's completely exploded. It was not televised live. There wasn't as much scrutiny on your height, your weight, and every single aspect of it. The interviews, you didn't interview with every team. You would interview with maybe half of them, and now every player sits down with every team. But I'll say this. you know this, they are so prepared because of the teams of people that they have around them. You know, strength teams. They'll have quarterback will have a quarterback coach to help them with mechanics, and they'll have media teams that actually help them prep for going with guys with like us asking these questions.
It's crazy that you bring that up, but I almost call it interview or interrogation, and you have to know as a young person and player which one you're going to get. I think the other big thing, Danny, too, that I love about this is you get to see the quarterback position. I'm looking at the tight ends today, but the quarterback position is always the one that's missed on the most, man.
I speak my truth. I make sure I explain how I play the game, how I see the game, my process, how I'm able to get through things. Obviously there's stuff of film and on the board, and, it's just talking ball, X's and O's. Coaches I feel like, have asked about, how I've gotten, to throughout plays and through reads and all that. And again, I've been around so many great football minds being in these meetings and, being able to talk about, one myself and then be able to pick their brains and see how, they run their offense, be able to learn from that. I think it's been a lot of back and forth, and I'm super grateful for it.
I think I've been the best player in college football 2 years in a row, and I think I've consistently done that. And I think that honestly, I think I haven't even touched my potential yet. I think that I have a lot more to get better at, but I have a lot more to not only prove, not only to y'all, but to myself. And that's something I plan to do, because I honestly don't think that I even got close to anything in college yet. So I'm excited to see what I do in the NFL.
My guy right there said I'm a project, so I guess teams already know that I have room to grow. So I'm able to do everything on the field, run over people, jump over people, run past people, throw the ball pretty well. So just tying it all together, I feel like that just helps me become a better quarterback.
I think my leadership style would definitely be that, which is just lead by example. I mean, I kind of liken it to how I first got to Kentucky. I didn't step in. I wasn't the starter right away. I didn't step in and start kind of being that rah-rah guy and just starting to boss people around. What you do is you put your head down and you earn the respect of others through your work. And that's what I'm going to plan on doing. And it's kind of just a feel process where once you know that you have gained the trust of the coaches, the players, or once you're named the starter or whatever, that's when you can start transitioning into more of a vocal leadership role, being able to understand and step in and talk to guys individually when you feel like it's necessary. And that kind of process is just gradual, but you just got to feel it out.
I'm all of the above. Anything. If you need anything from me, they can come to me. I'm a great friend, and I think that translates to just being a great teammate. Many times throughout the season, we're joking and laughing, but when it's time to get down to business, they know I mean business. And that's something that's helped us. Just from a leadership standpoint, the whole leadership council and the whole captain's committee at Tennessee, has made a huge emphasis on, leading from the player side.
Tell us a little bit about what you saw this year out of this group.
So, this kind of irritates me every year, Buck, because I see it happen all the time and I shake my head. I think there is a clear-cut number one because of what he did on the field, and that's Bryce Young at Alabama.
Okay.
I think he's in a class by himself. And then I think it's C.J. Stroud out of Ohio State.
Because you don't want to hear the projectability piece, because that's what we always hear about, right?
Okay, and that's what frustrates me because, and there's two guys, Will Levis out of Kentucky and Anthony Richardson out of Florida, who are these massive risers because they look great in shorts and a T-shirt and when they're throwing versus
like
air.
Jim Druckenmiller, remember that name? Or some of these names were guys
Absolutely.
Big,
who else did it? Who? Zach Wilson, who was taken 2 overall, and he only had one good year at BYU, but they loved his throw where he threw it back against his body at his pro day. So that frustrates me because those, and no doubt they might be home runs, but I think there's an incredible amount of risk with them. And, as the risks that are in there with Bryce Young are his size. That's what people are worried about. To me, I'll take the risk on his durability, but I know he can play the position as opposed to somebody who might be able to take the hits, but he can't complete the passes. I'll take that risk of Bryce Young all day long.
You bring up a really good point. The same conversation about Russell Wilson, who didn't go as high and had a nice career before he struggled here in Denver. I think there's a lot of combinations there. But what is it about Bryce that you like so much, and how does he project to the next level?
All of it. I think he's the total package. The intangibles are there. He's about as nice a human being as you can find, and yet he still has that edge where he's a competitor. He's an assassin when he gets on the field. He's made all the throws, anticipation, and I look at it as just poise, which is such an important thing because you see quarterbacks get rattled. And I've never seen Bryce Young get rattled, whether he was backed up and needed a 90-yard drive on the road against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. What'd he do? Converted multiple fourth downs. His heart rate looked like it was never above 80. He was just cool as a cucumber. We saw it multiple times this year where he's always kept his team in there, and he's never panicked, never gotten affected by the rush. He's just, to me, is the total package.
Now, when you look at the next level for quarterbacks, there's a lot of teams in the market. Chicago seems to say they don't need a quarterback.
Right.
They want to go back, right? The Panthers at 9. You've got a lot of other teams. Indy needs a quarterback. Atlanta, the Texans. There's a lot of teams in the market for quarterbacks, whether they're projectable or not. What do you think about all that movement?
So I think the Texans at 2. The question to me is the Texans at 2 and the Colts at 4. Are they do they like Bryce Young or somebody else enough to go to the Bears and say, we want to take out any doubt of whether we're going to have a chance at our guy? And then it's the question, like, how much do you love him? Like, how much do you really want him? Because they'll have to give up something. But they don't have to move that far up. But I do think eventually you'll see somebody trade up for the Bears because the Bears have made it clear. And what we saw out of Justin Fields last year, you start to saw some improvement. You start to see them utilize his legs, and it looks like it's headed in the right direction. So I think they do want to move out of the pick. But I think what's fascinating is, like, do the Texans just sit there and say, all right, we're just going to trust that he's going to fall to us and that the Colts aren't going to give it up? I would, if you like a quarterback that much, and I do, I would take out any risk of losing him. Say, all right, let's go to the table, let's make something work and move up for the pick.
DK, as a general manager, what other person or player did you see here this week that impressed you the most out of this week in the Combine?
So many. I mean, that's the thing I always forget, you know, because we analyze these players as numbers on the field when we watch film, and you're always kind of blown away as they're all so impressive. And, you know, I'll give you 2. So Bijan Robinson, actually just talked to him, and he's the running back 1 that everybody likes, and I've liked his, you know, his film. But then you talk to him, and he's like, and you know this, the guys that last in the NFL, they get it. Like, they get the total package. They get how to handle media. They get how to prepare. They get how to take care of their teammates. And he, to me, is the total package who's been at a high-profile place like Texas. I think he'll step in from day one. I think he's probably the best candidate for Rookie of the Year. I think he's really impressed me. And then the other one, another Texas kid out of TCU, is Quentin Johnston.
I saw him live.
I am biased. I know there's, like, always the debate. Would you rather have, like, the speedy receiver, or would you rather have the big physical? And it's not like he's slow, because he can blaze, too. But he was big and tall, wide radius. Like, I wasn't that accurate, so all I had to do was throw it in the window. And he'll go get it for you. But Quentin Johnston out of TCU was the other one that kind of impressed me.
Those 2 guys, I didn't see Bijan live, but I saw Quentin this year against Tarleton State. But still, nonetheless, you could tell watching film, Danny, he was awesome. I'll ask about another team because we have a lot of Panthers fans. What do you think about the Panthers now with Frank Reich? They look like they've got finally some stability from a coaching staff perspective, and the GM seems to now be able to really do what he wants to do.
Well, that's the most important question. It's another team that comes up for quarterbacks, you know, so much so that I don't know if I believe it, but they're kicking the tires on Aaron Rodgers. I'm like, I don't know if I believe that.
I saw Carr, but I didn't see Rodgers.
Right, Carr to me makes some sense. I think Carr is as soon as Aaron Rodgers decides, when he's out of when he's done with the darkness, and I know he's out, but as soon as he decides, I think that's the biggest domino to fall. Like, where does Derek Carr go? Because I do think he'll be the most sought-after free agent quarterback. Or do they decide to go with one of these young players in the draft? And that's probably a decision that will have to be made by the Panthers sooner rather than later, because Derek Carr said he's going to be patient, but he wants to make sure he's got a home and get in and start preparing. But I love the Frank Reich hire. I thought he got a raw deal with Indianapolis. He had some injuries. He's been dealing with older quarterbacks, like much older, not Derek Carr old, much older at the twilight of their careers. Carson Wentz. It wasn't that great, but I think he's good with QBs. And as we know, that's the most important position of the game. If you figure that out, which I think he can do, then you could have the franchise headed in the right direction and start building on it.
DK, man, appreciate you coming on, man. What we're going to do, my producer back here, you can't see him through the light, but he loves golf. He can't play worth the crap, and I really can't play. But I heard you're a scratch golfer. So we're going to go and come down to Florida, hang out with you just the whole weekend, and you and I are going to hit the ball around and do a whole chopping it up with Buck scene down in your neck of the woods.
Love it, man. Let's do it.
All right, brother. Thanks, man. I'll tell you another position I'm interested in is the tight end position. Michael Mayer from Notre Dame has had everybody wild so far. Big, explosive tight end that can make plays and block in the passing game. And Frank Reich's offense, tight ends are key.
When I came in as a freshman, really good tight end by the name of Tommy Tremble, who plays for the Panthers now. That's my guy. Talked with him a little bit, FaceTimed with him a little bit, just asking general questions like, look, how were the meetings? How were the formal, informal meetings? What did you kind of do to prepare? Things like that. And he helped me out tremendously. And that's my guy. And I can text him whenever I want. I know that. And I can call him whenever I want. He can give me any type of feedback. So it's been great to have him in my pocket, man. Brock Wright, who was also, playing for the Lions right now. He was there when I was a freshman too. And so, what the University of Notre Dame is about is guys like that helping out. And, when I get to the league, anybody on that team can call me. They know that. And I'm going to help them out too. So that's what Notre Dame's about.
But the other thing, a linebacker with speed. Shaq Thompson has started to get age on him. Still a really good player, but you want to get some more speed guys that can fly around the football and make plays on the defensive side. The Panthers have some things to come up with quick. Quarterback is going to be one, but there's some other positions that they really have to be key on and make sure that they can help. And I think that tight end position is one that I would look really closely at as well. The beauty of coming to the Combine is you run into all kind of people. Greg Cosell has been around a long time with NFL films, and I love his NFL matchup, but we got a chance to sit down with him and talk ball, and it was a deep, deep conversation that we're going to revisit in the summer. But right now, I got Greg Cosell on Chopping It Up with Buck. We were just talking before. It's been so long. We've bumped into each other all the time and just seeing each other. But you were reminiscing and making me think of UCLA days. That's how long I know you've known me, and then I've gotten to know you as well. Tell us about this experience at the Combine and everything that goes into this.
Well, I've been coming here since 1998 or 99, so it's changed quite a bit. I love coming to the Combine because for someone like myself, I get to talk to a lot of coaches. That to me is really what it's about. Fortunately, I get in the dome and I can watch the workouts, and I love that as well because it's always nice to see the guys move, see them in person. Obviously, they're not playing football in a strict sense, but you still can pick up a lot of things. But, the opportunity to see coaches over the years, because I just finished my 43rd season at NFL Films, so I know a lot of coaches, I know personnel people, and those conversations are invaluable because it's always a learning experience. You're always learning, and that's the way I view what I do, watching tape all the time, trying to learn more, keep developing better and better foundations for how I actually watch tape. And sometimes you just pick up a phrase from a coach, and even though you know what he's saying, the way he says it just resonates with you in a different way, and all of a sudden you think, oh, now when I go back and watch tape, I just see it a little bit differently. So for me, the Combine is really, I make, at this point in my career, I make 2 trips, the Super Bowl and the Combine I really enjoy.
You bring up really good points. Covering college football, I love getting out in the off season and going visit with coaches and their staffs because the game, although it's changed, as well as I do, it's kind of stayed the same, but there are different principles, different things. We're seeing more of the spread offense and the RPO world coming into the NFL and vice versa. Tell us a little bit about that as you watch film and the things that you guys do at NFL Networks to break that down.
Well, the game always evolves and changes. Now, there'll always be core principles. It's like routes. There's not 1,000 route concepts. So basically when you deal with, let's say, the pass game, you deal with how do people get to route concepts. What are the tweaks they make formationally, motion-wise, use of personnel. But, a 3-level stretch concept is a 3-level stretch concept. It's just how you want to get to it. So those are the things that change. Defensively, things are constantly evolving. In the NFL, for instance, when I'm sitting in my office at NFL Films watching tape, you notice things. Now in the NFL, you're seeing a lot more 5-man fronts. That's something you didn't see as much in the past. So you see a lot more of that. You see a lot more of quarters coverage, split safety coverage, because the Vic Fangio tree, and he's sort of considered the savant when it comes to that, that's kind of expanded throughout the NFL. So you see a lot more split safety coverage. And actually, it makes perfect sense because in split safety, you don't get the vertical seams, whereas you can get those in single high a lot more easily.
I love as a tight end.
And I remember seeing you do that at UCLA. That was just a few years ago, right? Just a few. Just a few. And the quarterback throwing it to you wasn't bad either.
No, I think we know him as a Hall of Famer, like Troy Aikman.
Yeah. But, so the game is constantly evolving and changing, and that's why you have to keep watching tape, which is what I do basically 12 months out of the year. And that's the other reason I love the conversations with coaches is because, I get an opportunity to ask about the changes in the game, and those guys can give me the whys. And to me, because I didn't play football. I grew up in Queens in New York, and not a lot of high schools in the New York City area have football, so I played basketball and baseball. So when I started watching coaching tape in 1992, for me it became an academic and intellectual exercise. So I see the game that way, so I'm constantly trying to learn the game through the schemes and the tactics, and that's constantly evolving and changing.
What really got you into football? Because we all know the great Howard Cosell and being around your uncle. But I think the big thing for me was remembering dun 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 as a young kid. So I was telling you, Earl Campbell. But I watched the game the same way I think you do, and I was a former player. But even a kid, I wanted to know why things were happening the way they did. What was it for you that really got your appreciation and love for football?
Well, I'm sure you remember the Earl Campbell game on Monday night against Miami.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Oh, do I remember that very well.
Yeah. When he scored that long touchdown, it seemed like he had nothing left, and he just kept running, and no one could catch him.
Can I tell you a quick Earl Campbell story? And I relay this to people all the time. But me and Reggie Moore's dad was Zeke Moore, who was in Houston. We were working out on Tom Williams Hill when Earl was a young Earl Campbell. We saw him attack the hill like nobody else. I mean, I've watched guys literally give up everything running on that hill. Earl attacked it maybe 1,500 yards or 70 yards straight up the hill, and then he just comes off and says, "That's what you got to do, young blood." And I never forgot that. Right. I knew I had to work that hard if I was going to ever get there.
Well, I graduated from college. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I went to a liberal arts school, and I majored in American history and political science, but I worked really hard, and law school seemed like the obvious, but I just didn't want to do it. So I ended up getting a job as a teacher and a coach, and then I realized I didn't want to do that. So I applied back in the day when you actually sent letters and resumes through the U.S. mail. That seems like about 100 years ago. Right. Right. And, one of the letters I sent was to NFL Films, and I got a call from Ed Sable, and he invited me in for an interview, and went in, and then a week later he offered me a job. And this was in 1979, believe it or not. I've been there since. And in 1984, Steve Sable, who was my mentor, my friend, my boss, came to me, and he must have seen something in me. And at that point, ESPN was in its infancy. Football was presented on TV totally differently. And he basically had this general outline idea for a football show. And he must have seen something in me because he came to me and said, I've got this general idea, not really sure what it is, but you're the guy. And that's how the Matchup Show was born, and I just became truly fascinated by football. And once we got the coaching tape in 1992, I believe it was, that was like the Rosetta Stone. Everything opened up. And I had to learn the game, and to this day I'm still learning, but I had to learn the game through the coaching tape. And like I said, for me it became an academic and intellectual experience. And that's the way I love, and that's the way coaches, as see the game. Obviously built in football is it's physical, it's violent. We know that. It's like boxing. The goal, you don't just swing wildly and hope to hit the guy in the jaw. There's a science to it. Football is a very tactical, schematic game, and I'm fascinated by that.
One of the shows I've watched since you guys have been around has been that show. We did a show called The Matchup Show. I also, we did the film room breaking down college football. And one of the things I would always watch you guys just to see what was changing, what was evolving. Tell us from that what you're seeing now as this game continues to evolve and change with the massive size of the guys, but also the speed that you're starting to see in this game.
Yeah, well, we know, this is not brand new, but we know that the game is played a lot with 3 tight ends, 11 personnel. Although more and more teams, have been running the ball a little bit the last year or two. I don't know if the run game will ever be back to the way it was, in the mid '80s or early '80s when guys like George Rogers were the number 1 pick in the draft. I don't think we'll ever quite get back to that. Like a Bijan Robinson in this draft, I think he's a great, great prospect, and he just looks like a pro back to me. But we all know he's not going to be a top 5 pick, just because whereas he probably would have been 25, 30 years ago. I think you see, defensively, we live in a world of sub-defense now, 5 defensive backs, 6 defensive backs. Some teams play 7 defensive backs. We live in a world of more speed on defense, more pressure schemes. Back in the day, I think the pressures were, not that they were poor pressures, but they weren't as many. So the game is constantly changing. Offenses react to defenses, defenses react to offenses, and I think that's what makes it a lot of fun, to be honest with you. I mean, I love watching tape and seeing something and going, "Oh man, that's a really cool blitz." That to me is the fun of the game. I love that. Or seeing, "Wow, I love the way they got to that route concept." That's really enjoyable for me.
Football is like poetry or creativity, and I tell people that all the time. When you see coaches that understand that, and we get to watch it and then learn from those guys how they're putting that together, it's awesome. What I want to do is we're going to come to NFL Films and spend some time with you and just kind of watch how you work. I'd love to be able to do that, because that's the thing that I don't think people understand, how this game, how you look at the game, but also how you study the game and how you learn the game is doing it from that perspective. So we appreciate you coming on today.
Oh, come to Films this summer. I'll be watching tape. In the summer, I kind of jump back and forth between watching college guys who will be in the next draft and NFL tape, because in the summer I can dive down and be more specific. During the season, I have to try to watch as many NFL games as I can. That's my job. So I can't necessarily, let's say, pick one team and watch, their third downs. That kind of thing I can do in the summer. Like I'm very excited to take a look at the Detroit Lions offense in a little more detail, because I thought that their offense was really, really good last year. And obviously they were not a playoff team, but they scored a lot of points. And just watching their tape on a weekly basis, it seemed like they had really good concepts. They got receivers open. Jared Goff was really efficient. I want to do a little more deep dive into their offense and see what they did, because Ben Johnson's their offensive coordinator, and he obviously got head coaching interviews this year. He's going to be a head coach. So I want to see, what they did. That's the kind of stuff that interests me.
One question for you. Eric Bieniemy was with Kansas City. The Chiefs have been good. Now he's moving to Washington. How do you think that's going to work out for the Commanders and his ability to try to get to that next level as a head coach?
Yeah, and I think that offense will be different than the one he came from, because I think as of now, things can change, but as we speak here at the Combine, looks like second-year quarterback Sam Howell will likely be their starter. I think they're going to want their offense to run through Brian Robinson, the second-year back from Alabama. So it's not going to be the Chiefs' offense, and obviously there's only one Patrick Mahomes. So, I think that Bieniemy's been doing this long enough. He's smart enough to play to the talent than to play to what he has. Sam Howell, I think, has some talent and he can move well, but obviously he's not Patrick Mahomes. They're not going to be running. When I say they're not going to be running that offense, the playbook might be similar, but you just take different parts of it. I think they'll be a run-first team. They'll try to be physical up front. They'll try to run the ball, and they'll work off that. And Brian Robinson's close to a 230-pound back, so he's got the body type where, in an ideal world, if it works, he can carry 18 to 22 times every week.
Well, we appreciate your time, Greg. It was great getting you on, finally getting a chance to see you. I know we respond to each other on Twitter and social media, but glad to finally sit down with you and have a conversation.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
It's been a great week at the NFL Scouting Combine. We're outside of Lucas Oil Stadium. I didn't play in that. I played in the RCA Dome, but I'm familiar with this area. We're back in Indy. Yesterday, raining like crazy. Today, beautiful sunshine. A lot of guys had a chance to show their wares, and that's been the great thing with the Combine. A full-scale interview. When you come in for 2 or 3 days, you get interviewed or you get interrogated, but whatever you do, you make the most of it. We have to close it out, but again, I'm used to Indy and this great sunshine, and these guys are hoping that their future has a lot of sunshine in it as well. I'm Buck on Chopping It Up with Buck.